Hey, bad guys.
What's going on, YouTube? What are we at tonight, Sully?
Well, we got our motor back, finally, from the machine shop.
Woo!
So, the other day, Mark and I chased all the threads and cleaned everything all out and hosed it and oiled it, and it's all ready to go. We are tonight going to drop in the crank and make sure all our clearances are good.
So what's that mean? That means we gotta wash the crank, we gotta drop the bearings in,
Yep,
we got to check our clearance with plastic gauge
plastic gauge and run out.
and a run out. And that's probably about it, right? Put it all back after we put the after we put the plastic gauge on it, take it apart,
Yeah,
assemble it with the proper lube and all that, crank it down for good, and that's it. That's probably about as far as we'll get tonight because it's actually time consuming to do this stuff.
it is a little time consuming. The connecting rods and pistons and wrist pins still have to be put together, and then we can sort out our ring gap where it's going to be a boosted application. We're going to open them up a little bit, and yeah, so that'll take another couple evenings, I think. So
Look at this pretty thing you got going on here.
isn't that gorgeous?
What do we got there?
What is this?
Stage 2
Stage two?
BTR.
BTR.
Woo!
It is BTR Stage 2 Turbo Cam.
Sweet.
Why did we get a turbo cam?
I don't know, maybe because we're gonna have a turbo in it.
Really?
Heck yeah. Thanks for watching, folks.
See you guys.
Alright guys, so we got the crank here, and just like the block when we talked about doing this the other day, this thing needs to be cleaned. It was gone through at the machine shop. Pretty sure they did a little bit of polishing on it and they balanced it, so it's been exposed to their machining work. We're gonna just basically clean it up. It doesn't need to be hit with water like we did with the block, but take some brake clean and I'll wipe this whole thing down. There's little holes in some of the spots where the bearings ride. That's for oil and lubrication. I want to make sure they're clean as well. That's basically it. So I'll get going on that while Jay's getting ready with the bearings on the block. Just to give you an idea what I mean by that. I don't know if you can see, but look how dirty that rag came out. Just one wipe. So that's the general gist.
Just one way. Hey guys, like Mark said, all those little holes in there, they're oil feed holes. So your oil pressure runs through all the galleys of the motor. There's holes all through here. Pump the oil through the bearing. That's the hole through the bearing. Make sure you line up the bearing side the hole's on, not the other side, or you won't have any, well, probably have a lot of oil pressure, but the oil won't be getting where it's supposed to go. Again, these are the rest of them. The block side has the holes for the oil, the cap side has none. I don't think you noticed that, but they all have a little locating tab on each side as well. Because how it is. Where?
You can probably guide me in there.
Alright. Look over that. Try not to rotate it because there's no lube there. Our plastic gauge.
Okay guys, so you can see we dropped the crank in. I don't know if you caught that on film, but Sully put all the new bearings in, but the caps, they're down below the motor. They're right down there on the floor, you can't see them. Put the lower side of the caps in the block, and then after I cleaned the crank, we dropped it in there. Try not to rotate it because remember it's dry, so you don't really have any lube, assembly lube or anything like that. The goal here is to measure these bearings and make sure the clearance is right against the machining on the crank. So Sully cut up plastic gauge. Here, I'll show you what that looks like. Here's the brand of plastic gauge we got. You can get this at most parts stores. So really what this is fine plastic inside, and then on the outside you get a measuring strip. So we're gonna put the crank, we're gonna put that on top of the crank on each one of the bearings, put the caps on. Oh look, they're slowly showing you a little bit, it looks like a hair. And then we're going to crank down all the bolts to the right torque sequence, and then take it all off, and we'll use these lines that are on here to measure against the squish rate of the plastic to find out if we have the right spec for our motor. If we do, then we'll clean it off, and then we'll put proper assembly lube on and torque it. If not, then it's really back to the machine shop because something isn't right.
This is a great opportunity for me to mention how much we love your comments. So please smash the like button below and leave a few comments for us. We absolutely love interacting with you guys.
There we go.
Torqued.
Like a rooney.
All right, well now after all that hard work, we have to go in reverse and take them all back off.
So a big shout out to Nova Automotive in Halifax, Nova Scotia. They made all of this possible for us. Thanks, guys.
Plastic gauge, I can
Here.
see it. In there.
Anyway,
Looks thicker there.
that's our plastic gauge right there. That's it. It's squished out. Compared to the little hair that it was.
All right, guys. So Sully's got the plastic gauge there. I think he can show you on one of the caps.
So this little line here used to be that little thin piece of plastic that's now been squished out. So this is what they used to measure it with. And spec is 002 to 24, I guess they figured.
Yeah, that's right.
So 24 thou. Anyway, so we're pretty much bang on. We're a little tiny bit more than 2, so I'm pretty happy with that. That'll be mint.
We're good, dudes. Right, so next up for us, guys, we got to clean that plastic gauge off of the crank and the bearings. Then we'll toss in some assembly lube and put it all back together and retorque it. All right, so next up you can see Jay there's dropping the old assembly lube on. So the purpose of that is to lube this crank up and the bearings. It's kind of like a really thick, goopy, oily paste. And it's just basically meant to make sure that this thing doesn't get worn out before it gets lubrication to it on its first start.
Don't want a dry start.
Then we go back in with the crank. That's very heavy.
Very
Okay, you drive me down.
Door.
Pour it on, Jay. Pour it on.
So excited.
Okay, guys, while Jay's doing that, I'm going to prepare the bolts that go in the side of the caps. So they're just a shorter bolt. They go in the holes here. There's 10 of them, 5 on either side. They call for a little bit of RTV just under the head of the bolt there because apparently they leak. Although Jay and I have never seen one of these leak, but maybe that's just because everybody we know used the right stuff.
Yeah, because everybody we know uses the right stuff.
All right, guys. Well, as you can see, we got our block together. Everything's all torqued down. Side ones are in with the RTV so they don't leak. And does it spin? It spins smooth like butter. So that's as far as we're going tonight. We have other things to do in our life today, but we'll bag this thing up and keep the dust out of it. And when we come back at it next time, we'll be taking the pistons and the rods and putting them together and putting them in the block, and we have to measure the gap on our rings and adjust that for boost. That'll be another big night. Another time consuming night, really. That one's, what, 3 or 4 hours of work? Yeah.